cart shoppers asking me to approve the substitutions.
There you go.
Like, fuck, I don't want butter lettuce.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Coffee and Bullshit Live, episode 102. We got Matt here co-hosting with me. And we also have a special guest, Steve Drum, former Navy SEAL. He was just on Brian Kill Me on Friday. So he's making the rounds, and he decided to come on this little show here. And go ahead, introduce and stuff like that. No,
Hey, guys. Yeah, man. No, excited to be here. I love it. I'm just staring at your background. You got that big, beautiful like studio set up with all your branding and your coffee. I love it. Yeah. So hey, Steve Drum. I'm not too far away from where you guys are in Illinois, north of the city. Retired Navy SEAL Master Chief, 27 years. And so one of the last things I worked on before I retired was helping to develop this program called Warrior Toughness for the Navy to get our sailors and officers really able to respond to the high pressures and stresses of combat, but also kind of be better sailors in the day in, day out stresses of military life. And so I've turned that kind of into a book to translate a lot of things that I learned from Warrior Toughness, as well as my 27-year career into things that I can take to the business nonprofit world.
So what made you decide to join the Navy?
Yeah, I was always kind of leaning towards the Army when I was a kid. I wanted to be a Green Beret.
Ooh.
I always wanted to be some kind of elite commando.
Boom.
And but as I started getting older, my uncle, who was retired Navy, he was a Navy pilot, and he's kind of like, hey, there's special forces units in the Navy. They're called SEALs. And he gave me a book about SEALs in Vietnam. And the one thing I liked about that versus kind of going the special forces route at the time was you could come right off the street and go to SEAL training. As opposed to Army, you kind of had to be in there for a few years, like in another unit, and then go to Special Forces Assessment Selection. So I like that piece. So I kind of just decided, hey, I want to be a Navy SEAL, and I kind of decided I was going to train up for it while I was in high school and join the Navy at 18.
Very nice. So you didn't leave far from home to go to Great Mistakes for boot camp, right?
Well, no, I live in Philly. So that's where I grew up. Right outside of Philly. And what's funny though is I went to boot camp, and I'll rewind. So I finished up my career here. That's how I ended up here. Right. But I remember I went to boot camp. It's got, Great Lakes, north of Chicago. And I remember I finished. It was cold as hell, all kinds of snow. And I remember getting on the bus to go to the airport after I graduated. And I was thinking to myself, there is no way in hell I am ever coming back to this place. Who knew, right? Who knew? There I was. I actually picked coming here over some other places. But I left boot camp and went actually back to my A school, which is like, for people not familiar with how the Navy works, it's kind of like your MOS. It's your specialty. We call it a rating in the Navy. So I was a whole maintenance technician. And at the time, the school was in the Navy Yard in Philly. So went back there. And then I was not very good at math, so I actually didn't qualify for SEAL training. So I had to go from A school to work on submarines for a couple of years in Bryan, Connecticut.
Nice. So I'm from the better half of Pennsylvania. I grew up in the southwestern corner over in Pittsburgh. So I know what it feels like. But yeah, I ended up here somehow, and biggest mistake of my life. But no, I'm familiar with the ship life. I spent quite a bit of time on Navy ships in my Marine Corps career. So,
probably a hell of a lot more than me. Thankfully, I didn't spend too much.
Listen, I laugh all the time because there's some sailors I know. I'm like, I probably got more sea time than you do.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I don't have much sea time.
I was on the 24th Marine Expeditionary Unit my first 4 years, and we were constantly in and out of Norfolk, going up there, for training and then coming back and then deploying. So yeah, I spent quite a bit of time on ship, and I was like, I'm never doing that again.
Yeah. Well, in the back before 9/11, in the SEAL teams, they used to ride ships a lot.
Yeah.
And it was obviously a very undesirable deployment, especially like the LHDs, LPHs, right? The Gator freighters, right? With the Marines embarked, the helicopter assault ships, that kind of stuff. But those were kind of the worst. But my second deployment is actually on a strike deployment. So nice. I was attached to an aircraft carrier, and it actually was really good. We didn't spend a whole lot of time on the ship, but when we did, we had the whole aft SAS, which is like a storage ammunition, and we could lock it and had our gym and all kind of stuff. So we lived really well on that ship when we were there. So
I was going to say they tend to live way better on the big aircraft carriers.
Yeah, I mean, you got 2 chow halls, right? Basically 2 galleys, so you could pretty much eat around the clock.
Right. So I got like the main chow hall all the way forward, and it was that one was like your mainline foods, and then they had another chow hall that was like your burgers and your hot dogs and stuff. It was wonder why nobody you didn't see that many more fat people on the boat, because that fast line was open all the time, and it was like, Jesus Christ, how many burgers you need?
Yeah.
So
I mean, we had a chow hall, but
yeah,
I think we had like a weekend chow hall that was open till
you guys had more than chow halls. You guys had green beans coffee. You had all that stuff.
I'm talking about on the okay. But at Bragg, we didn't have all that.
Bragg. Oh, yeah. So you pay the man at Fort Bragg.
You do.
Yeah.
That's no place that I wanted to. Thankfully, I was never stationed there, but yeah.
It wasn't that bad. Bragg wasn't that bad, I didn't think. So.
Where else did you go? Where else were you? Where was your first duty station?
First duty station was Camp Hovey in South Korea.
Oh, all right. Yeah,
so
I've never been there either.
That's the one I always wanted to go to.
It was great. 1 year there, I enjoyed being in Korea. I enjoyed the food there. The people were okay. You had the drinky girls and stuff like that. And, when you're single, you just
buy me drinkies.
Buy me drinky, pretty much. And,
nothing else.
The food was cheap. Your money was spent well. I mean, I had got clothes from there, custom fitted. You're like, damn, look at this.
Yeah.
Suits.
That's one of my regrets, never being able to go to that part of the world. Like, I would have loved to have gone to Japan. I know some of the fleet guys, the Navy guys that were stationed in like Yokosuka and stuff like that. They always say great things. They had great experiences from it.
Yeah, so.
But didn't you guys get kicked out of Japan?
Not completely, almost.
Almost, yeah.
We're almost there. We're moving.
Now you're in Guam?
Yeah, they're posturing for something different now. We're in Guam, I mean. So they're trying to stop China from spreading out too much and building their own islands over there. So
surprised they didn't put you guys at Dago Garcia. Jesus. So tell us about your book that's coming out.
Yeah, so the book is called, again, Life on the X, the Navy SEAL's Guide to Meeting Any Challenge with Courage, Confidence, and Readiness. And so right now it's up online for pre-orders for the print and for the ebook. The audio book is probably going to be released in about 6 weeks, kind of staggered that a little bit. And so if you probably understand, I'm sure Marine Corps Army, you understand that term, the X, right? The military doctrine term. So you fast rope out of a helicopter on top of a rooftop of a building, you're assaulting you refer to that as landing on the X, right? And we also use it, right? If we're being ambushed, right? You're going down the street in enemy territory, you get in that kill zone, right? We refer to that as the X as well. And so when you're on the X, you think in that case, you got to get off that X. But that X, it represents what is often that most critical, that most dangerous part of a combat operation, right? And that's what we gear our training to, the most difficult, the most dangerous. And so how this translates to the everyday person is that, like, I get it, most of us are not being shot at, right? It's not life or death, but there's important moments in our life, whether it's our relationships, whether it's like a pitch, a customer engagement, any type of thing like that, where we really want to show up and be our best selves, right? And show up prepared. And also, like, hey, one day you're driving home. For those of us with kids, you get a call from the school principal. Your kid's done something really stupid. You're angry. But then you're able to kind of say, all right, let me visualize what success looks like with an engagement with my kid. How do I act and behave in a way that creates like a good behavioral change or a good desirable outcome? So it's really about I create the framework to really prepare in all kinds of different facets for your most important moments. You're like, hey, it's like a combat operation. Here's what I need to do. Here's what success looks like. All right, here's the steps so I can be at my best.
Okay.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick up a book.
Yeah, I'm going to pick up one too. Okay. And where can they pick it up? Or like your website or?
Yeah, it's online right now. Anywhere books online are sold. And so, like, that's obviously Amazon, other places like that.
Okay.
But, yeah, you can go onto my website and learn more about me. It's stephendrum.com, STEPHENDRUM.com. and there's a book page you can check out. And yeah, the book officially launches March 7th.
Okay. So which teams did you work with?
Yeah, so I started off SEAL Team 2 on East Coast, and I went from there, I got administratively transferred over to Team 4, and then did a couple other training commands, Team 2 again, Team 10, a couple other different commands, and then ended up here in Great Lakes area for my final.
Okay.
So are you training? Were you working at Recruit Training Center over here, or?
Yeah, recruit training. So initially I came up to, the story is, right, I spent pretty much my whole career on the East Coast in Virginia Beach. And they're like, hey, look, man, you've never moved since you've been in the SEAL teams. You're going to have to probably move when you make, your final pay grade, E9, Master Chief. And I'm like, all right, well, let me get out in front of this. Like, it's summertime, got kids in school. And so I looked at a couple different places I could go. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to pull my wife away from her kind of family support network with her mother and all that. I'm like, let me at least do something where I can guarantee predictability, right? So I actually gave up orders to go to Tampa or California to go where I knew it would be a predictable schedule and my wife could get a job there. And so that's what we did. Recruit Training Command. That's where I kind of ended up.
Hey, it makes complete sense.
Yeah.
So I made my choices off my sleeve. I was like, hey, well, you can go anywhere you want. I was like, New Orleans, let's go. And I was like, after that, it was like, hey, we're sending you to Japan, but your wife's pregnant. So where do you want to go? I was like, back to North Carolina. So
we didn't have those choices. Here's your order. You're going here. I'm like, all right, I guess I'm going.
They were sending me to Japan, and then my wife was part of the Exceptional Family Members Program, and then she was pregnant with my son, and there was concern about her vision and eyesight, and stuff, and they were like, well, we can still send you to Japan. I was like, that's fine. We're already gearing up to go, and then they were like, so where would it benefit you best to have the support around you? I was like, well, North Carolina probably. So we went back to North.
And that's where your wife is from, then, North Carolina, probably.
No, my wife's from New Orleans.
Oh,
so yeah, so I grew up in Pittsburgh. She grew up in New Orleans, and now we're in Chicago. So
you kind of meet in the middle.
Yeah, it's So yeah.
So in your years of being on the SEAL team, and you've been working on your book and building your brand. I mean, how do those two kind of? I mean, I know you explained the X, but I mean, how did you get the idea to I want to do public speaking and write a book? And
yeah, no, it's a great question. So, when you're looking at coming out, if you spend that long in the military and it really is all you've known effectively your whole life up to that point, right? You're getting out, pushing 40, getting out of the military, actually over 40, but it's like, all right, well, what am I going to do? What did I learn? And then what is take what I learned and take what kind of things that I really like to do. And then you add on to that, okay, what's a purpose? What's a purpose in life? What can I do that's meaningful?
Yeah.
And you combine those things. And I look back when I was reflecting back on my career, it's like, I went to combat. I did that, enjoyed it, right? I had, some of my friends are my heroes. They did a heck of a lot more than I did. But I look back and I'm like, yeah, I enjoyed my combat time. I enjoyed training for combat. But if I'm being honest, really probably the biggest impact I had was during my times as an instructor and my time as mentoring and training other people, right? Whether it's U.S. Special Operations SEALs, but also, foreign partner Special Operations Forces. And I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed instructing. I enjoyed teaching. And, and so I'm like, all right, well, I should maybe look at doing this, maybe doing some professional speaking. Of course, I was naive. I didn't know how much it is. It's so much different than actually being an instructor in the military. And there's all the brand and, professional or the actual aspects of running a business. And I was so naive to that. And so I really, and I enjoy the performance element of it. It's like, hey, you're going out on stage. And to me, I liken it. It's you're walking out onto the X, right? Because it's the X on stage in front of like 1,000 people because your stuff might not work. You better remember the direction you're going. You better be dialed in. You better be prepared. And so there's that element of almost like roping out of a helicopter. Obviously I'm exaggerating, but it's still a similar type of feeling of getting there and performing in the clutch, which I like.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So I don't know. It's like in the Marine Corps, is your hope you said you were working with the Navy also on that warrior mindset.
Yeah. So what happened was I went up to the Navy boot camp to do what's called the dive motivator position, which I think they may have dissolved a lot of that, or at least the way it was structured. And so I was basically the senior enlisted leader for that shop. And underneath that, I had SEALs, air rescue swimmers, EOD techs, divers working for me. And our job was to provide the onboarding for the young men and women that came into the Navy that had contracts to try out for those programs. And so we'd give them mentoring, we'd give them run and swim progressive workouts. And then as I was there, I was probably there about 2 years out of a 4-year billet. And I got approached by, basically the admiral in charge of all of Navy accession, right? Enlisted and, OCS, ROTC was kind of like, hey, we need to do a program to get our sailors tougher. And so literally it's like myself, a clinical psychologist, and a Navy chaplain. We're like, hey, figure out a program of how we can make using mental toughness, character development, sports psychology, all that different stuff, and the methods and manner in which we plan, prepare, and execute in the SEAL teams, come up with a program. And so that's really what we did. We created a program. We started at boot camp. And my job was to teach the drill instructors, right? We call them recruit division commanders in the Navy. It was my job to teach them like a train the trainer. And so we did that, and the program has continued to expand, and it's still going strong today, from what I understand.
Right. So with your book, do you hope to, like in the Marine Corps, we had the Commandant's reading list. Would your hope be to have your book facilitate in that capacity as well?
I never really thought about that. That's a great question. I mean, I of course, I'd be lying if I didn't say the more people that read my book, the better it would make me. Right. And I think, I've never really pushed to kind of be engaged with the military post-retirement, just because I worked in that part of the military where you're dealing with industry, you're dealing with vendors. And I'm like, it's such a pain in the butt sometimes to deal with the military, deal with the government, but I kind of wasn't even thinking about that. I've had some offers to come kind of speak about warrior toughness. And it never really kind of worked out. I'm willing to do it, but they never really worked out. But yeah, to your point, I mean, it'd be great. I think there's a lot of lessons there that are absolutely good for the military, right? I mean, it is how I train, how the SEAL teams train for fighting. But I also have like professional athletes. So I interview a lot of top performing like CEOs. There's former professional athletes, baseball players, football players, Olympic swimmers. And really it's the commonality between high performers that have to perform under high levels of stress and pressure and are still able to perform at that high level. And so how do we distill down those lessons into kind of a commonly used framework that we can have to give to other people?
So, sounds good. Yeah. I mean, it's just thinking of my mindset, I'm always looking for more, for training wise and just stuff like that.
Self-improvement.
So, so that at first, whenever I first got in the Marine Corps, I hated the Commandant's reading list. Like there was a couple required books in there, like a Message to Garcia and stuff like that. You had to read. I mean, just little things, but then as I grew older, I was like, you know what, maybe I should check that book out. Maybe I should check that one out.
Yeah, I mean it definitely comes with wisdom, right? And we are just our like, especially as young men, our undeveloped little reptile brains, right? Our monkey brains aren't really ready to uptake a lot of that wisdom, and we do what we can, right? We have kids, we try to say, hey, these are the things that I learned the hard way. I'm giving you the cheat codes, right? But, it's like the vegetables are on the plate. Take it or don't take it, and often they elect to figure it out themselves, which that's fine. And I think my book maybe is not for everybody. It is for people that are like, I want to up level my performance. Like if you got to have a level of desire and motivation, right? It's whether you're talking about losing weight, whether you're talking about fighting addiction, right? None of that stuff works until you decide that you want to do the things that are necessary to get you in the place and the direction you want to go. And the book's like that too. So the first part of the book is all about character. It's about being committed. It's about knowing who you are and where you want to go, how you're going to get there. It's about how you want to show up, your brand. And so you got to be willing to do whatever it takes to live in accordance with your values, your beliefs, your principles. And it has to start there. From there, once you've got that nailed down, now we can start talking about how we train, how we prepare, mental skills that we use, mindfulness training, agility, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because I mean, all of us being in the military, we're always, attack,
Yeah.
Just move forward, keep moving, it's just our mindset, we don't want to stop. We want to keep going. We want to be successful in everything we do,
Like in my brain, it doesn't work like I worked for the post office as a mechanic, so I started out at the lowest level.
Right.
And like for me, my brain just works like it's not good enough until I'm at the top.
Right.
And then, but for other guys, they're like, "Oh, I'm cool.
I'm cool
being right here,
right.
man." Like,
just like
starting
to
going. I've never once thought like, "Oh, I should do this instead. Maybe I should keep going this way."
Yeah.
And I was like,
right.
So
we don't want to stay staggered. We don't want to fall back. We want to keep going forward.
Yeah, you just want to keep going forward.
And I think, it's one of the things when I talk to veterans who are looking at transitioning, and I don't know what your experiences were. I think probably all of us, especially you're pushing close to 20 years of service in the military, there's going to be a level of discomfort that comes. And it goes like you're excited to get out, you're excited to hit the ground running, and you're doing it, you're getting after it. And then probably 6-8 months, a year later, you're kind of like really feeling kind of a disconnect maybe, or at least a lot of the people that I talked to. And that was my own experience. But there are things that we learn in the military, but we got to start looking at how they can benefit us. So one of the things we do best in the military is what we call, and I use it's the reflects part of my book, but it's basically our AAR, right? Our after action review process. And I call it assess, analyze, and reflect. Like we are really good at that. And I always try to impart that onto, corporate business organizations. It's like really being able to step out of that noise and traffic. Because in the military, especially in aviation and special operations, we debrief the hell out of everything, right? Whether it's a full-blown after-action review with a report, or it's just, hey, kick the door in, shot some targets, whole thing took 15 seconds. Oh, we're going to talk about it, right? We're going to debrief it, and we're going to be candid. Like there's no punches pulled. Doesn't matter what your rank or title is. We're going to be candid. We're going to be succinct. We're going to get right to the point. And everything we talk about is going to be exact, specific steps for you to execute in the future. And I think that's really, as veterans, like we can only use that to our benefit. And we can share that with other people and help them kind of in that same process.
True.
Very
true. It is true. I mean, it's like the mindset of us starting, the roasting coffee to help veterans, and we just want to keep going and try to help out veterans, and a safe place for veterans to come, and we can just hang out and talk bullshit and
relive the past and
relive the glory
days, right?
So
there's just something people don't understand about that kind of brotherhood.
No, it's a brotherhood, a sisterhood. I have a few. Today I met a female that was a 68 whiskey, a medic in the Army, and her and her husband were both medics, and we're just talking. She's like, "Oh my God, I didn't know this place was here." I'm like,
right.
She was like super excited about it. I'm like, "Oh, well, thank you," and sat there and talked for a few minutes and stuff like that. But it was something. It's just really nice to be. It's like we can kind of get our mind back to being normal instead of dealing with a bunch of civilians that you're just like, just shut the fuck up. I'm sorry, but
listen, that's every night at work.
And that's important, right? I think that's one of the main struggles. If you look at, I think there's a whole. People are always asking why do veterans seem to take their own life at such a high rate? And I think that is not an easy question. I think there are so many layers to that, but I think there is one large piece for people that are struggling, and that is that loss of connectedness. Right. And I think that's awesome that you're providing kind of that place to do that. Right. I think because all of us, we lose that connectedness. Right. We have friends that are civilians, but they don't always quite understand. They don't understand that drive to be better, to compete often, the things that, the struggles that we face. So I think it's really good to do that. And I think especially just as men in general, set aside the veteran thing. If you look at like most men who are in their 40s, like, they really, I find myself like I will easily sit on my couch and like chill and have like a bourbon and watch Netflix or hockey or something. But my wife's out there every night just with her girlfriends. And I think we got to make an active decision to be engaged socially for our own health or mental health.
Yeah. So a little bit off topic, but out of all the movies you've ever seen about Navy SEALs, which one was the most accurate that you've seen?
Oh, jeez.
I don't
see. It's a hard
there's a
thing,
couple
right?
that I saw that I was like, man, there's no way in hell. Like,
I can't. I know I can't speak to that. I mean, I know what movies like. And it's not about SEALs, but I always like Black Hawk Down. I thought that was really well done. Which it's similar, right? Special operations, Rangers, JSOC, that kind of stuff, similar stuff. But I think there's elements that I appreciated. Like I don't really watch a lot of those movies, honestly. I like. There's elements of like Lone Survivor, right? I don't know. I like really connected to that one moment when they're right about to get into that gunfight, right? They see the enemy closing in and they're just like, all right, here we go. I could really connect. I remember what that's like, right? Where you're just like, all right, this could go bad. We're about to commit to something and here we go. And there are other things like I did see the Sniper movie. I remember there's probably some scenes there. I mean, obviously highly Hollywood,
Right.
Yeah.
dramatized, but there's some elements there, I think. In each one, like I was not a huge fan of that Act of Valor movie, but I will say the coolest part of that whole movie was the Swick part where they come in on those I forget what they're called, the Riverine boats, and they're using like live ammo in the movie, like zipping through those cars. I thought that was pretty badass.
Yeah.
Because it was live ammo, right? But yeah.
I don't know. I was watching Marine and the Marine and Jarhead with my son. He's like, Dad, is that what it's like? I was like, absolutely, buddy. That's exactly what it's like. So
what was that HBO one they had about the Jarheads?
With Recon. Generation Kill.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't see that. Was that good?
Oh, dude, it's awesome. It's awesome. Like there was moments in it where I was like, yeah, I can connect with that. I can definitely connect with that. But it was awesome.
Yeah. Once they make a movie about mechanics, that'd be perfect.
Listen, I'm out because I can't wait to not be a mechanic anymore. So,
Are you guys car guys then?
I am not. So I turned a hobby into a career. And it was the biggest mistake of my life. And now I don't even want to touch my own stuff. Check engine lights on in my wife's car for a year now. And I got trans lines leaking on my truck that I haven't touched. And,
I can relate to that.
Yeah, I just don't want to touch it. I'm like, whatever. If it has stopped leaking fluid on the ground, then we have a problem. Until then, if it's still hitting the ground, we're good. It means it still has more. So,
especially with all your connections.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So,
but anything else? I got
no.
So you have any upcoming events? Any public?
Yeah, I'm doing a few things going. I do work with Folds of Honor sometimes.
Okay.
So that's like the charity that I work with. I'm an ambassador for them. And so I have some like offshoots that I do. So I'm going to be doing some stuff in Pennsylvania. It's this golf resort coming up here soon. And then just some corporate gigs here and there.
Yeah.
Whereabouts in Pennsylvania are you going to?
I am going to Lockwood Golf Resort, Lockwood. It's kind of near. It's not too far from Scranton. It's probably like an hour and a half away from Scranton in the mountains. Really nice resort, like in the middle of the mountain. It's really nice. They take really good care of me when I go there. So yeah,
I love that area of Pennsylvania up there. So it's beautiful.
Yeah, Pennsylvania's got some really pretty country out in the middle, right?
Like that whole Susquehanna Valley is phenomenal. So
yeah. I just want to say thank you to you, Bobby, for hooking us up together.
Yeah.
Bobby Curtis from Patriotic Frog. And, I'll get with you offline. We'll send you some stuff. So you can try our coffee out.
100%. I'm all about coffee.
Yeah.
I'm going to order one of those books tonight. So
yeah, I'm going to take a look.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Grab a couple and throw them in the front.
Yeah.
There you go.
Could do that too.
So, all right, I'll come down for the signing.
I was gonna say, yeah. If you're ever in the area, hit us up. We'll go grab a beer or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, thank you, Steve, for being with us, for being on our little podcast here. And,
no, man, it was great. Thanks. Great questions.
Yeah.
And thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
And everybody out there, check out his book. Pre-order it now. Get it online, Amazon, and from his website too. What's your website, just so that people know?
StephenDrum.com, StephenDrum.
All right. So, hey, and Steve, I'm sorry for your loss recently. That Super Bowl was a killer.
Yeah, I think everybody lost, except for the Chiefs fans. Everybody lost watching that anticlimactic.
I know, right? Yeah, no, it wasn't good. But
all right, guys.
Go Steelers, go Pens.
Guys, have a good one.
See
All
you
right,
later.
we'll
Thank you.
Take care. Out here.
Well, everybody, thank you for being with us. For Matt for being here on the last minute.
Thanks for calling me.
Yeah, he's got his big mug here from his wife.
It says on the bottom.
Pick that nose. What does
it say? "I love you to the moon and back."
Oh,
nice little date night gift to color me mine in Geneva.
There you go.
And then we went out and bought tons of bread today. We bought like $70 worth of bread from Breadworks over in
Holy
St.
crap!
Charles, or from Smithworth.
No, over there in St. Charles.
Yeah, the place in St. Charles. Delicious today at this apple pie bread. I'm going to turn it into French toast tomorrow morning.
Oh,
dude,
that sounds good. All right, and anybody's wondering, Brian's on vacation this week, so he'll be back here next week. We're gonna work on another special guest. Hopefully, I gotta give the guy a call again. So till then, guys, thank you for watching, and don't forget to come by and get some coffee from us, from our other. What am I? I'm like, why? But my brain's just going 60 miles an hour, but can't even put my mouth to it. So don't forget to keep your head on a swivel. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next week, and
stay frosty.
There you go.